You are now tuned in to the Free Play Media Podcast Network. Welcome to We Are Live. I'm Travis Terrell, sitting in for Chris Dimon this week. My good friend, Matt Whitener.
Good to see you again.
It's great to see you as well.
We just did 3 hours of radio.
We did, so of course it's time for... And this gentleman to my left is of none other than the great Jeremy Piven, who will be at Helium all weekend long here in St. Louis. If you haven't got tickets, probably already sold out, so you may have to go through a third party. Nevertheless, you need to see him if you're in town. Jeremy, hello?
They are not sold out, by the way.
Okay.
No.
So make sure you get your asses over to Helium.
Let's do it. Let's get into it, you guys.
Let's get into
5 shows.
You're going to be here all weekend. It's great to see you back on the road. But before we get started, our condolences to your Chicago Cubs. Not really. Yeah. We've been laughing the last 2 days. We enjoy it very much. But, I mean, hey, you guys had the division lead 5 games in September, only to lose a wild card to the Colorado Rockies. How are you doing this week?
Is how you start things.
Yeah, this is what I mean. We just get it out the way. Let's just get it. Just go ahead and just get it out the way.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we've been a team that has said, you know, we're going to get them next year for 108 years. And so we're used to this type of stuff, but you know, you've revealed yourself to be someone that revels in other people's miseries, and it says a lot about your character.
Okay,
it says a lot about you. So I'm honored and happy that you showed your cards from the jump. It means a lot to me, and yeah, I mean that's right. You don't have a football team. We were going to talk about football.
Rude.
But then
rude.
We'll go to Arizona or LA to find either one of your.
It's like we've got ex-wives scattered around the country.
That's interesting.
Back.
Okay, cool. And maybe we can go visit maybe someone. We'll see if Kurt Warner is available to find the last person that won in this town.
You can blame this on yourself, Travis. You did this to you.
Listen, and Travis, you brought a butter knife to a tank fight, and you did it from the. By the way, you did it from the jump, which is interesting.
So I'll ask you though, man, because I mean, you know, there's nothing more relieving in the history of sports than was 2016. What's it been like, you know, for that time since you just seeing the change in culture?
Look, we're still buzzing about it because you know I'm from the north side as well.
Yeah.
And it was absolutely incredible the way it all went down, and you know those guys are all still on the team, and obviously Joe is still the manager, and yeah, I watched until 1:00 I was in New York watching that game the other night, 13th inning. It comes down to so many of these weird little moments where guys who are better than reaching for pitches that are terrible and swinging at things they shouldn't, and it happens, and it's just so fascinating. You can watch an entire season, and they could be crushing it, and then it comes down to little mental errors.
Yeah,
you know what a crazy game it is.
What do you think about? I mean, John Lester in the 6th inning. I'm keeping him in there, man. That's one of the best postseason pitchers of all time. I mean, I know you've got to get offense at that point, but I mean, you know, come on, give him a shot to go.
Yeah, I agree with you. He's such a cagey veteran, and I don't know. Joe always knows what he's doing. But, yeah, you can second guess this forever. It's too bad. We needed to get the bats going, and that didn't really happen. And it's all part of it, you know. But to switch subjects, I mean, I don't know if your listeners are obviously you're talking sports, so they do love sports.
Yes,
right?
they do.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Well, the Bears are crushing it. We got Khalil Mack, and it's so interesting. It's like everyone's like, you can't pay $160 million to a defensive player. Well, if he can transform the entire team and affect the game, oh my God, like, I played linebacker 160 years ago. I didn't even know you could play the position like that. This dude is doing everything. I think he's actually making hot dogs as well for people in the stands. He's literally he's rushing the passer. He's forcing fumbles. He's sacking. He's intercepting the ball, making touchdowns. He's really funny on the sideline. He's now starting a stand-up tour. He's gonna be. he's opening for me tonight at Helium.
I mean, you look at that guy. I mean, he's I mean, what can you say? I mean, is John Gruden an inside worker? Is he from Chicago as well? Is he an inside insurgent for them? Because how do you let that walk away?
I like John's like, we're looking for some defensive players, some guys that can rush the passer right now. You're looking for him. Okay, you didn't have to look too hard. He was sitting on your lap, sir. He was literally, you could have been a ventriloquist dummy for Khalil Mack. Yeah, so listen, there's an old saying, you get what you pay for.
Yeah.
We paid a bunch of money for him, and oh my God, I think we got a bargain.
Yeah, you did.
He's just killing it. He's killing it. And by the way, he makes everyone else look good because they're triple teaming him. Everyone else is now you've got these great players that have one-on-one, and that's why they're opening up and everyone's looking so great. And by the way, Mitchell Trubisky, try saying that name 3 times.
Please don't, Travis.
6 touchdowns. Good
6
God,
touchdowns.
man.
Not since Sid Luckman in 1937. Not since I was in junior high school has that happened.
That's insane.
Well, I tell you what. I mean, second pick. I mean, I like the fact they're going all in, and I'm looking forward to that rematch with the Packers because Aaron Rodgers escaped with his life barely and escaped with the win by even closer margin. But Khalil Mack almost won that game by itself, so I think 160 is a bargain for that.
And by the way, Khalil had no preseason. He had no mini camp. You know what I mean? And that dude. You could see he was human he was gassed by the second half.
Yeah.
But now he's got a full tank and he's coming at Aaron Rodgers.
Are you telling us to head to Vegas? Should we get a little bit in while the odds are good right now?
You can never. I would never bet against Aaron Rodgers. You just don't know. That dude is just something's
He's
different.
not fair.
He's probably. They should look at his stats in terms of. I think he's probably completed more Hail Marys than anyone else. He's one of those dudes.
Good God.
He just, he I don't know how he does it.
He probably closed the churches in Detroit a couple years ago and you threw that thing and they said, we can't pray enough to keep this guy out
Exactly,
there.
man.
It's crazy.
You're back on the road, which I'm curious about because you've been so used to a television film schedule, a theater schedule for so long. What has the adjustment been like for you getting back on the road and getting back into the clubs?
Well, for me, I have no background as a stand-up. So for me, it's exhilarating because it's all new to me. And yet, I've been on the stage since I was a child and been performing and in all different ways, and straight theater and sketch comedy with Second City and improv and all this different stuff. So I've been on the stage my whole life, which is one of the major variables with stand-up, but the other variables, is writing and having to write your own material and being someone that has always rewritten and pitched ideas with every character I've ever had. Some get put in and a lot don't. So to have my freedom and to be able to, it's daunting. It's like, be careful what you wish for. Right. Suddenly, I went from like trying to figure out how can I get my stuff into, wow, it's all my own stuff.
Yeah. Right.
So it's really kind of fascinating and amazing, and I love the process, and it's been incredible. I take it very seriously, and I'm a performer, and I do impressions. It's real stand-up. It's not me, getting up there doing a Q&A or taking a victory lap or showing a movie from the 80s and going, here we are. Let's take some questions.
It's not a biography. It's basically what you
Yeah, I mean, you're laughing, but I mean, there are a lot of people out there doing it.
Oh, I know.
As we speak.
Yes.
And I'm not that guy. It's straight up stand up from beginning to end, and I'm honored to do it, and I'm loving it.
What if everyone else in the industry, what if they had to say, they hear that Jeremy Piven's on the road doing stand-up? What has been some of the feedback you've gotten since you decided to do this?
You know what? I love nothing more than to be counted out. Huh. I love. I've been the underdog since I began.
Right.
Theater companies in Chicago under the radar, grinding, getting better. First 40 movies I did, if you were to try to even look at the written word, they didn't exist. I had one line and would come, to the set ready to play with tons of alternate dialogues and ready to improvise and have fun. Would turn scraps into a meal. I've done that my whole life. So I love, Entourage, the role of Ari Gold was a quote unquote fringe player.
Right.
I had a limited contract. I had the equivalent of like, an NBA player just getting that tiny kind of like
10-day?
Yeah, I basically started on like a 10-day contract, and I was 40 movies into the game then. So I love being underappreciated. I love it when people sleep on me.
Right.
There's nothing better. There are a lot of things in this life I can't do, but I can perform. And I've proven myself to do that, and I'll do it again, and I'll do it every night. So count me out, hate me, throw it at me. It keeps me going. It's pure motivation. So I to be honest with you, I don't know what anyone's saying.
Right.
And I think it's healthy to not know. But if I did know, then that's also motivating as well. So I do know that, for instance, I was on a bill at like the Comedy Store one night, and there was all these heavy hitters there, and Joe Rogan was after me, and he said, "Great, that's exactly what we need, another actor trying to do stand-up."
Oh, wow.
And, the great thing about Joe is he, as you guys know, he's created a lane for himself by being completely authentic.
Right.
And he's a brilliant stand-up, and he's many different things, and a true maverick. And he was speaking his mind, and he meant it. And then he came up to me afterwards, and he goes, "You know what, man? You take this really seriously." And I do. And he knows that, and I think they all know that.
Right.
I have nothing but love and respect for all those guys.
Right.
And so I'm just trying to learn and get better, and so that's what it's all about.
Jaron, I like the idea that you said about authenticity there, because that's been something, that kind of following your career and seeing what you've been involved in, I've always felt, that it generally was you coming across in the role. So when you talk about some of those humble beginnings even with the Ari Gold character, how much of the success that went on to be for you came from you saying, "I'm going to interject as much of me into this as I possibly can"?
Well, it's interesting you say that, because everyone, and I'm fascinated by why, everyone wants to know how much of you is Ari Gold, which is so, if you just look at that from a distance and just say, why is that? Like, I played a million roles, and other people, they get all these questions. They never get that question. Mm-hmm. And I think, and you guys tell me what you think, but I think it's because the character is so specific. It's so authentic. And yet he is this abrasive, offensive, equal opportunity offender. Mm-hmm. And some people say, how could that be acting? But the reality is, how could it not be acting? I work I've been on the stage since I was 8 years old.
Yeah.
And Malcolm Gladwell has, the theory about the difference between good and great is 10,000 hours. I'm not saying I'm great at anything. I just know that I've logged many, many thousands of hours.
Right.
And the harder you work, the easier it looks. And so I've been on stage performing commedia dell'arte, which is the oldest form of acting, which is you have to be in one of four emotional states: happiness, sadness, anger, or fear at all times, and amped up to 10,
Right.
And so I've done that. I've done the hard work so that I can play a character that's over the top and still believable. And believe me, if it could be done, you'd see it. Mm-hmm. Someone came to me who shall remain nameless and said, "Hey, I'm doing a new show. Who can do what you do?" He said to me. And I went, "Oh, that's interesting." He stumped me, because I think what we all do, we all are contributing in a different way.
Right.
And if there was someone that did what I do, you'd know about him.
Mm-hmm.
And we'd be seeing them right now on HBO.
Right.
Or something. And we would be seeing a character like Ari that was totally emotionally invested.
Right.
And that was over the top and believable. So I do not share the same ideology as Ari Gold. I am not an abrasive,
Right.
over the top guy that's going to be taking up all the oxygen in the room. It's not all about the money with me. I'm just a stage actor from Chicago. So in a lot of ways, I'm the antithesis of Ari Gold. I can scream that from the mountaintops for the rest of my life, and it doesn't matter, because people are going to believe what they want to believe. I was immediately vilified while playing that character, and I wasn't prepared for it. I remember taking my mom out to dinner, and we were eating, and afterwards the reports were that I was yelling at my mom so badly that the entire restaurant had to get up and leave, and I was banned from Nobu from life and all this stuff. And my mom said, what did I miss? And I said, you didn't miss anything.
Oh, wow.
And my mom's from another generation where it has to have some kernel of truth.
Right.
There has to be some honor among thieves.
Yeah.
And so she went, she couldn't wrap her mind around it. And listen, Ari Gold, there is one of those guys in every crew, in every arena, and, to lesser and greater extents. And Ari Emanuel exists. And there are guys like that Trump that exists that are blowhards, and white privilege exists and all that. And so to be, and it's funny, you touched upon it, like how much of you is like that. I think what they did was they went, wait a minute, this character feels very authentic, and he's a very easy target.
Right.
If we take a shot at him, we'll never feel the repercussions. That's an easy target. He seems to be this privileged white dude, Hollywood blowhard. We can take as many shots at him as possible.
Wow.
In fact, we can tie Jeremy to that character and vilify him. And by the way, I'm just a stage actor from Chicago. So when that started happening to me, I was like, I didn't understand what was happening.
Right.
I was so confused. To be under the radar, to be grinding all those years, and then to have success and immediately have the knives come out. I was like, wow, I didn't see that one coming.
Right.
Now, I'm not playing the victim. It's all part of it.
Right.
And it was fascinating to walk through that. But my point is, like, coming from me, the headline, he's not Ari Gold or whatever. It's like none of that really matters. It's my job to be the best version of myself that I can be at all times. And as a celebrity, if you look the wrong way at a hostess or something, you're going to be written up and you have to go to the principal's office. But listen, it's a small price to pay for being able to do what you love in this life.
Yeah.
So is it worth it? Yeah. Because, I've been a working artist my whole life. Here I am learning a new trade.
Right.
And the cool thing about this is I don't have to rely on anyone. It's me up there. And I'm either going to thrive or fail on my own, alone, on stage.
Which is fascinating because you 3 Emmy wins, a Golden Globe, transitioning from that show, that character, and the success. What was that like? Because a lot of times that's a difficult challenge for someone of your talents to, you nailed that part. Now you're ready to turn the page, new chapter. What was that transition like, and how long did it take to begin to separate yourself from that notable character?
That's a great question. I was very confused because I've been a scrapper my whole life, and I finally get a role that allows me to explore something fully creatively. And as you mentioned, I was very lucky to get to be recognized with awards and whatnot. And the phone wasn't really ringing, and I was very confused. And my agent said, I think there are people that have a hard time believing that that's acting. And I'm so confused.
Wow,
it's like,
that's weird.
But by the way, we're the only culture that would do that. Because to answer your question, my next job was in the UK playing Mr. Selfridge. And they were the first ones, because they know intrinsically, if you're an actor, to work on a certain level, you have to go through the proper channels and go to drama school and do all that stuff. And so if you're an actor, you've done that. And that's what I did. And so I came by it all honestly. And so they offered me the role of Harry Selfridge, which I played for 4 years, which aired here on PBS. And they don't really have any money to advertise. And so that was an interesting journey. And it obviously wasn't as big as Entourage, but I got to play a character that was so different from Ari. And yet he was a maverick and all these things. So that transition was amazing, and I got to work with some of the best actors on the planet.
Right.
But I think for whatever reason, in the States, they don't embrace having an artistic imagination. And I think if they did that a little bit more, we would have more great entertainment. Just because you play one role well doesn't mean you can't play another role well.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, and the reality is, if you play that well, that means that you're onto something, and that you can investigate and play another character authentically. So I've taken matters in my own hands, and here I am on the road doing stand-up. And the one thing that I hear from everyone is they're really surprised when they see me perform. Every one of them. They always come up to me, man, we didn't expect that coming.
Wow.
And which is amazing to me because, I've played opposite Will Ferrell in Old School and played with some of, the greatest comedic forces of our time.
Yeah.
And, so for them not to see that coming is great. I'm doing impressions and just swinging away, telling stories and about, being on different sets. And selfishly, I get to tell people where I'm from, who I am. And, to go back to what we were saying is I can tell them until I'm blue in the face that I'm not Ari Gold. Mm-hmm. But the best way for them to find out is to come to my show. Because when I'm on stage, I'm not a character on myself, like I am talking with you guys.
Right.
I'm myself, and that's the resting point. And then I get to go into stories about growing up in Chicago, growing up in a theater family, what that's like, who I am. So selfishly, it's a big reveal into who I am, who my journey is, and then what I think is funny, and the journey along the way. So, all roads have led to here, and I never would have seen this coming.
Do you find it to be a thing where you get maybe a different type of fulfillment from doing that too, getting a chance to just go out every day and just be yourself and walk away saying, that character's great, and the other things I've done are great, but this is me, and this is who I really am, and people walking away with an appreciation for that?
Well, I know that to entertain a crowd for an hour is not easy. It's really, as you guys know, by yourself alone up there. And they've done studies where people say they'd rather do the craziest things, jump out of airplanes, whatever, anything other than get up and do stand-up. So it's terrifying. So to face those fears and to navigate that space and to do it where you're entertaining people and they're laughing is incredibly fulfilling. Yeah, it is. It's totally different. You get multiple takes. You're on the set for 12, 14, 16 hours.
Right.
Recently, Damon Wayans just said,
I just saw, he said, that's it. He just called it quits. He says he can't do it anymore.
Right. And, it's so interesting to see his reasons because he's like, look, I got a family.
Yeah.
I just did an hour drama myself, and I know that you're there for 16 hours, whatever it is, and then you go home and you run your lines and you get back at it. And what he's saying is true. That this life is about finding balance. I haven't seen the days since 1997. Like I didn't know that you could have lunch. I didn't know much less breakfast. I didn't know that it existed. I'm like at coffee shops looking around, just like hugging people. They're like, "Get out of here, man! What are you doing?" I'm like, "Wow." Would you call this brunch? Is this technically lunch?
Now that might be level
sir, how
two.
are you?
Take your time with that. Get used to breakfast and lunch, and then the combo on that side.
Yeah, it's been amazing. I get to sit in coffee shops and write my comedy and have this balance that I never had before. But by the way, I've never taken breaks in my life. I just don't. For good or ill. I'm not saying it's a good thing.
Right.
Because here I am, 200 years old, I'm still single, which is a whole other conversation. And that wasn't premeditated, and I talk about that a little bit in my act. I'm at the point now where I want to be in a relationship so badly that I'm too intense. I'm too passionate. Like on dates. You know what I mean? I'm like an old Jewish grandmother. How many kids do you want, really? And I'm trying to breed up. So I'm always trying to breed up. So I'm like, do you have any height in your family? And also any history of male pattern baldness? Because I'm trying to get a little more hair. What's going on with that? Have you ever had an Adam's apple? Are you in? So I'm scaring people away when it's an interesting place to be right now. You can put it all up on stage,
Right.
and it's a fascinating form because there's a method to it and there are rules, and yet you can break all the rules.
Right.
Every stand-up that I'm on the road with, I get to learn from. And my learning curve is really high, and it's a very self-celebratory thing to say, but it's because I've been taking direction my whole life.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's a stand-up and he goes, "Hey man, you might want to conserve your words here and hit that punch on whatever," and I had one guy that said, "Man, you are the most coachable dude I've ever talked to."
That's awesome.
Not because I've been doing stand-up, it's because I've been taking direction since I was 8 years old.
Right.
So I get it, and I put it into the next performance. He was like, "Dude, I gave you 11 notes. You just executed every one of them." I'm like, "Yeah, well, that's what I'm supposed to do."
Right.
You know what I mean? So maybe that's why, any other stand-up, if you were to interview any other stand-up, and don't say my name, but say, there's a dude out there, and he's been doing stand-up, and it's his first year, but he's headlining, he's out there. They go, "Oh no, he's terrible. He's no right. He shouldn't be headlining. That's a joke."
Right.
It takes you 6 years. It's science. It takes 6 years, and I thought it was art, but apparently it's science. But but listen, there is a science to it, and I get it. And yet there are different variables. Had I not been on stage my whole life, I would never even attempt it. It's way too hard.
Right.
It's way too hard, man. But I can contribute on that level. Now the writing is something different, and I have to do it every day.
Right.
And and just keep figuring out ways to make it better, to get the point across in a more succinct way, have the punchline land harder. You know what I mean?
Right.
Just all these different things. Like, at one point I got so excited with my impressions that it was too much. And I got a great note about, have it be like the spice in the story,
right,
where it comes in organically and you can hit it and they can, okay, that's what he sounded like. Wow, that's incredible. As opposed to you're just jumping in with an impression, then you're kind of hacky. And you want, you know what I mean? So you just got to tell me once. I hear it and I'll execute it. So, by the way, I'm a viciously mediocre stand-up. No, I'm just kidding. After all that,
please come see him at Helium, please.
Yeah, it's the cure for insomnia. Somehow I saw him and fell right asleep.
I want to be respectful for your time. I want to get you out of here, but before I do, I one thing that I really enjoyed about your bio, of course, you grew up in a theater family. Your parents founding a theater company. How much did your upbringing influence you as an artist? And just even the friends you, of course, made, John Cusack, just being able to be around other creators, but also having that support system from parents, which a lot of artists, unfortunately, don't always get.
It's a great question, and with the arts is dwindling in this country. It's not even, they don't even have it in schools. And I was a product of public schools and going and studying, very lucky, going and studying with my parents from an early age. I wanted to be a football player. I didn't want to be an actor.
Right.
There aren't any Jewish linebackers in the NFL, and I'm 5'9", although I do have very good lateral movement. Very good lateral movement. And I'll stretch out for you right now. I'm very flexible. No, but in terms of how, listen, it made me the actor that I am, getting up on stage with my parents, being directed by both of them. It's incredible, and they dedicated their lives to the arts and to directing and teaching all of their kids. Most of them are on scholarship, and I tell a story at the end of my act that I can't really get into right now, but about throwing that first graduation party of high school. And I'm such a dummy that my mom was literally at rehearsal. She wasn't even out of town, so she came home, and the cops came home and arrested her for contributing to the delinquency of minors in front of my entire high school. And she gave an impassioned speech about what it's like to be an artist in this life, and to be all in. And you know what? I can't. I feel
no, that's fine. Save that for the show.
You have to come to Helium.
That's a nice
to check it out.
tease. Come to Helium.
But it was incredible to, and I was very, very lucky. I didn't know any different. I thought that all kids grew up at the theater. And at the same time, I didn't fully value it. I saw other kids and their parents were like movers and stuff. And I was like, Dad, why can't you do something useful? Move something. Why are you doing King Lear? That's, and by the way, and I remember that my parents got called into school because we got in class, we had to get up and say what our parents did for a living. And I said, my parents steal shoes. And they're like, okay, Mr. Vernon Joyce Piven, come in and tell Jeremy what you do. And they said, no, we're actors, and we use our own clothes for our costumes. Because in Chicago, theater actors make no money.
Right.
So we had to use our own costumes, make our own sets. I came home one day, I was like, we've been robbed. I wanted to watch cartoons. There was no couch. There was no coffee table. And Mom's like, we're using all of that for the set of Chekhov's Three Sisters.
Oh, my God.
Of course.
Literally. Literally.
This is-
And by the way, speaking of white privilege, this is how much I'm entrenched in white privilege. I grew up in an old folks home, in a retirement home, because I grew up in a theater family. We have no money. So the only way we could live was to. I thought everyone had a neck brace as soon as you hit 18.
Oh, man.
Like, I'm not kidding. No, literally. That's the way I grew up, and and I wouldn't have changed it for the world. So before you judge someone,
Yeah.
it's important just to get a sense of who they are.
Right.
Because I think we're living in times right now where, these are very dangerous times, and it does feel like everyone seems to be living in the extremes,
Right.
whether it's left or right.
Right.
And I don't know if that's going to serve us. And, we need to start discussing things as opposed to, just trying to take away people's livelihoods. People are being taken down right now, and there doesn't seem to be a lot of discussion. And we are kind of abandoning due process. And everything that builds our judicial system.
Right.
That's a tongue twister right there. You know what I mean?
We go through this with him 3 hours a day. He has his struggles as well. Yeah.
But so I think we need to listen to each other more,
Right.
and we need to figure out how to be better and to heal and to evolve. And I don't know if the answer is to blindly take down one high-profile guy after the next. I don't know if that's the answer. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's a discussion for another day.
Well, knee-jerk reaction is a dangerous reaction. I mean, that is something that you see a lot of. You see it in the places that are supposed to be the places that people go to for reputable information. Historically, you see people that are doing knee-jerk things right away. We're making decisions before we have facts, to your point right there. And I think that is a dangerous precedence to set, especially when people are going to certain outlets that they think are going to be the ones that are the non-biased ones that are going to present things the way they are. The thing I always make sure to express is that, and my background is in writing, is that anything you get is going to be somebody else's opinion unless you were there in the moment with them to watch it. So be careful with how much of a knee-jerk reaction you give to anything just based off of where you heard it at.
Right.
And that's a dangerous road to go down. And I'm with you. I hope we kind of back away from that somewhat.
I hope so, because I think guilty until proven innocent. I think we're all better than that.
Very dangerous.
Absolutely.
Very dangerous.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There aren't too many people who will be at a Helium Comedy Club that has 3 Emmys, a Golden Globe, who has acted alongside greats like De Niro, Will Ferrell,
Gary Shandling.
Shandling. Good gosh, it's not fair. We don't have enough time to truly go down your IMDb page, but you've been a fan of ours for a long time.
I don't think he's been a fan of us. He just met us about 10 minutes
we've been
ago.
a fan of yours.
But now I'm a fan.
Now that you've decided that he is.
Right. Jeremy Piven, check him out at Helium this weekend here in St. Louis. Appreciate your time
Thank
so
you
much.
guys.
So
I
much
appreciate
respect.
your
Thanks,
time.
man. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I
Absolutely.
appreciate it.
Absolutely.
All right.
It's been We Are Live. Make sure you check out Rich Voss, Casino Queen, 2nd and 3rd in November, and then Ian Bagg doing a special show also at the Casino Queen, put on by yours truly, We Are Live. We'll catch you guys next week.